How? A word on arrows. Okay. Now, without an arrow, or with if you have a bow, but you don't have an arrow, you just have a bent stick with some string, or whatever it is. Like, even if it's a compound bow or anything like that, it is useless without any ammo. And your weapon, your ammo, is your arrows are your ammo. Now, for shooting in the woods, for practice and what have you, these are my preferred ammo of choice, which is the cheapest, sort of like with some kind of feather arrangements. I'm not 100% convinced that these are actual real feathers. I think there might be some kind of plastic thing, but they do actually work. If they're real feathers, please correct me in the comments down beneath. But my looking at them, I think they are plastic, but they work really, really well. These are the cheapest arrows. I mean, I'm shooting 300 spine because I'm shooting about up to 80 pounds, between 70 and 80 pounds. Well, between 60 and 80 pounds I shoot, to be quite honest. Some of these things I shoot. And the tips that I put onto these, they come with these field tips here, which are probably about somewhere between 85 and 100 grain. I put these 200 plus grain tips on and give them a bit more punch and the power. For shooting, repeated shooting, for repeated and repeated and repeated shooting, these are marvelous. Now, this one here is probably fairly reasonably out of the pack, straight from China, and it comes about 31 inches long. Let's have a look. I can see what we were looking at here. From tip to tip, it's 32 and a quarter inches long. So this is 32 and a quarter inches long from tip to tip. This one here has been used extensively, and what happens is, with the constant battering, this bit here takes a bit of a pummeling, this bit here, and it starts to fray, and you have to get your hacksaw and cut it down and refit with this insert here that you can get for a few pennies each, and you reinsert that, a drop of super glue, and away you go again. You fit your head in, and away you go again. Now, this one here, it's probably had a couple of things. It is now, from tip to tip, it is now down to 30 inches. It's lost about 2 inches. So, you can happily shoot a 28-inch draw off this one without any problems whatsoever. And it also, as you shorten it down, it also changes the balance. So there's your everyday arrows. Now, the survival bow and what have you is not built for, there's a difference. It's not built for sort of like archery clubs or what have you. The whole idea of it is, if you were in a survival situation, a bow like that could probably put dinner on the plate. In the right hands. In the wrong hands, it probably never be any good. So also you can buy these sort of arrows, which I'm not really that great. These are 300 spine as well, but they got the plastic veins on them, and I don't think these fly so well as these. You can definitely see a difference. But off a short bow, these are pretty good. And this one is now down to, it's from tip to tip, it's 27 inches. So you'll be shooting a short bow off this one, pulling about 24, 25 inches maximum. Okay, so that would be more for a very, very short bow. Now, in a full sort of like shit hit the fan situation, you'd be having to make your own arrows. You won't be able to go on eBay or the Jungle website and buy yourself arrows and everything like that. Now, I happen to have a friend whose main hobby is going around digging up Neolithic sites, and he sends me these every now and again. He sends me these little arrowheads. They seem to be quite common. The Neoliths made loads of these and they dropped them everywhere, and so you can pick them up, and you can even find a bit of flint like this that I found, that I've fitted this onto the end of an arrow, and that actually worked as, it was a blunt force trauma, but a quite sharp arrowhead. And if you can see these, I can fit these onto the wooden arrows using super glue. Yep, I'm not being saying, oh, this is completely new. We're using modern technology and some serving twine, and insert that, wrap it in, drop a bit of super glue on, pin the whole thing in, and bish bash bosh, you have an arrowhead. At the far end, this is not, I'm not saying anything. If you want to look how to do some fletching, proper fletching, there are a lot more people that are much better at fletching than I am. But I can get something together with a pigeon feather and 2 feathers that I've bought already cut, made in, and this actually shoots fine. The only thing I'd say about, you would not use these for target practice or practice, because really the flint arrowheads are, I mean, they're disposable. I'm sure the Neolithic people sort of like carried a bag of arrowheads with themselves so they could re-tip their arrows, because this happens if you hit anything hard or anything like that. That can happen if it comes in at an angle, it will snap. It's very brittle. That's why it gets a very good edge on it. But if you're using it for hunting or something like that, then this actually would function as an arrow. Another arrowhead you could use in a shit hit the fan sort of situation is, I ground this out of a saw blade. Now, saw blades are, I think they're EN4A, I think, or EN45 steel, which is what they make swords out of as well, funny enough. So if you want to make yourself a nice little handy little knife, you can actually do worse than using a good old saw blade, cut it down to the blade and sharpen it up, and it will hold a really good edge. Now, this is the same thing that I've cut out. Now, I would say that this is, I made this just a little bit wide, because I would have that a little bit more narrow in future. I can grind that down and make that a bit more narrow, because at the front of your arrow, this is almost like a flight at the front of your arrow, and that can catch the wind, and so it can move your arrow away from where you're actually aiming. So, you know, but the same thing here, that's been cut, inserted, and glued and twisted with some twine. And believe you me, that is in there. That is solid in there, and that is quite a lethal thing. Not once again, you wouldn't want to do target practice with this. Okay, and I'm sure the Neolithic or the Bronze Age and the people who use the these arrowheads as a thing had a system where they would use had arrows that they're probably completely wooden with knobs on the end or blobs on the end to give them a bit of weight on the front, where they could actually do their practicing without actually destroying the heads. Now, to put a knock into these things, right, where are we here? Okay, come on, focus. Right, so we have a rough knock in here, but if you notice, I've got that dark line coming down there. See that dark line there? That is an old credit card. In Neolithic times and Bronze Age times, that would have been bone. And even medieval times, that probably would have been bone. Now that, because when you release the arrow, that string pushes onto there, and if you're putting an 80-pound bow or a 100-pound bow, or you're putting 100 pounds worth of pressure onto that little point there, and there's an inertia in there that has, before the arrow gets moving, it has to sort of go into the arrow to move that arrow forward, and it's very easy for that to split just and run all the way down there, and it's quite dangerous as well. Actually, with your hand, you get a shard of wood go straight into your hand. So a credit card in there that way round will stop you, stop it splitting, and will hold it really nice and firm. If you have a cheap Chinese wooden arrow that I bought, and if you notice, they haven't done that on this, but what they've done is they put a whipping on here, there. They've whipped that there, and that's it. I wouldn't shoot heavy bows with this, because that could actually, that's not as strong as the bone or credit card or plastic. Plastic's quite a thing, insert, to actually catch it and stop it from being. Super glue, boom, bish bash bosh in there, and that will work. And I've done that. I did that on this one. If you have a look on this one, that's done on that one. And I've never had one go, if you know what I mean. These are only for a lighter bow. Yeah. But they're quite stiff arrows. You can always fix that and put cut down and put a card in there and make that solid. There's nothing to stop you from doing that, so you can shoot this off of heavier bows. You can actually make things, but the other thing I want to say is actually a lot of people, they tune their arrows for their bow. Each bow, they have arrows that are tuned for the bow. That's all well and good if you're doing target archery and you're just sort of like, and everything's, all the conditions are perfect and everything like that. But I would say, if we do ever get into the zombie apocalypse or the shit hit the fan situation, things are going to be far from perfect. So get used to shooting dodgy arrows that aren't perfectly balanced. Get used to shooting arrows that think, and you can actually feel your arrow as you're loading it. So if you've got arrows with different weights and different tips and different lengths and different characteristics, get used to it. Because if things did go awry, then perfection is not going to happen. Peace and love, happy shooting, and I will see you outside when the weather's a little bit better. Ciao.